What up? I'm Evil Squeegee, and today I'm here to talk about the point efficiency on the Path of Exile passage tree. Point efficiency is when you attempt to gain as much benefit for as few points as possible. The reason that this is important when you are coming up with a build in Path of Exile is because you have a finite number of points to work with. I like to build my characters around 85 points because according to what I've managed to put together, this might actually be incorrect. 85 points is the number of points you will have by level 66, provided that you do not actually provided that you don't actually kill all the bandits on any difficulty. This means that I am planning on helping Oak, probably helping Oak, and then probably helping Oak again. For most of my builds. However, the point is, I am building specifically for 85 points. This means that I want to accomplish the most damage, the most life, and the most defense that I can out of those 85 points. Now, the build that you're looking at here is the skeletal structure for the build that I will probably be using as an example. I've been theory crafting this build for a bit, and it starts with the idea of me wanting to do an elemental damage ranger. My plan is eventually to go Lightning Strike, but this build would easily work for Lightning Arrow as well. Now, you'll note that there is not a whole lot of life or defense on this build at all. That is because this is not the entirety of the build, and I do not recommend that you just run around doing this, especially if you're playing hardcore. This is an incomplete build. It's a work in progress. Now, I started by, as you can see, I've got these nodes here highlighted. These are all these highlighted nodes. These are all the weapon elemental damage nodes, which I believe here stack up to 100% increased elemental damage with weapons. It's at 110% elemental damage with weapons. Now, with this being set up, I am fairly certain that this is similar to what I am actually going to be spending on the tree itself. And now I am tackling getting a little more than 32% increased maximum life. Since I plan on this build being hardcore viable for the end game, I'm going to want as much life as possible and as much defense as possible. So let's get right to it. We can start looking around the tree, and we'll go for increased maximum life. And now the tree has highlighted all of these things for us. I'm using the offline skill tree calculator. I find it to be far more inviting and user-friendly. It's got a lot of better features, and it's easier. It doesn't eat up nearly as much memory. The website is awful. I don't know why. Maybe it's just my computer, but it doesn't like it at all. So let's get right down to this. We're looking at life clusters. Now these here, these are worth 8 each. There's an 8, an 8, and an 18. Another set of 3, 8. Here's 4 sets. There's 4 is a set of a cluster of 4 8% life nodes. There's 8, 8, and 12, 8, 8, and 12, 8, 8, and 12. And then if we come up here, we've got 12% and 8%. We got 8%, 8%, and 10%. Now, initially, when I first started spending points, my gut instinct was to go for the biggest life nodes I could. So that would have meant I came for, this is a 10%. I would have gotten this 12% here, I would have gotten this 10% here, and then let's say this is a 12%, so I would have gotten this. These are all 12, so I would have gotten these. And for the most part, like, it's probably not going to get you killed. However, when you are attempting to optimize your build to be as optimal as possible, which is what I like to do, there's an extra consideration here, and that is not just how big the life node you are getting is, but also how many points you are spending to achieve that. So let's take, for example, let's come down here and look at these life clusters. We have an 8, and an 8 is 16, and then 12 is 28, and we're spending 3 points to get 28% life here. This cluster here is also the same. However, we're not spending just the 3 points to get this 28 life. We're also spending this strength node and this strength node to reach all of these. So this is actually 5 points for all of this life. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if you do much calculating in your head, I'm terrible at doing math in my head, so I always use a calculator. We're getting, what was it? It was 12, 28. We're getting 28 points Now for these top clusters here, we're getting this by spending 3 points. That means we're getting 9.3 repeating life per point expended. However, with that bottom cluster, we're actually spending 5 points because of those 2 strength nodes, which means that we're only getting 5.6 life per point. So what I like to do is I take those out, and I attempt to maximize the amount of life that I'm getting per node. Now, in here we have 12 and 8. These 2 points are getting a total of 20% life. That's 10% life per point. That is an excellent amount of efficiency. My personal threshold is I like to avoid any amount of expenditures that is not giving me at least 8 per point, unless I have no 8 per point expenditures available. What this means is that because this is giving me less than 5, this is giving me less than 8 per point. This is 5.6 per point, as we just calculated. I would avoid that, and I would get the most efficient expenditures possible first. So that would mean this is 10. 10 is excellent. And then we come down here. There's an 18, and an 8 is going to be 26, plus 8 is going to be 34. 34 for 3 points in this cluster right here is also massively efficient. I believe at this point I have obtained all of the higher than 8 per. Now that leaves me, there's a cluster of 8 per for 3. 1, 2, 3 at 8 per, that's 8 per point. And then there's going to be 8 per point right here, because these are all 8 per. What else is there nearby? This leaves us at, as you can see here, 198% increased maximum life at 56 points. Now let's see what happens if I unspend this. I'm going to take this off. Take this off. I'm going to get rid of these. I'm going to get rid of these. Oh, come on, unspend. Where? Okay, unspend those. Unspend those. Now let's say we start doing this is less than 8 per point. Now I am not saying at all. It is worth noting that I'm not saying that these clusters are bad. For example, if you were going to be taking that 30% strength, or that plus the 30 strength node right there, anyways, then this 8% per node is actually you're only spending an extra 3 to get the life out of that, because you already know that you're taking that strength node. So it is worth noting that your point efficiency does require you to know at least a little bit about how you're spending your points to start with, because different builds will gain different amounts of life per point spent based on the nodes that they've already explored through the tree. But let's take, we've got those, we're going to take this cluster here, and then we're going to take this cluster here, and why not, we'll go like way up here and grab these. As you can already see, I've spent 60 points here as opposed to what I had spent before, and I've gained much less life total. And that is why point efficiency matters, because that means that I would have less life by the time I'd reached a higher level, which would mean that I would be a less powerful character as I was leveling. And it's important that your character be able to handle content at various stages in his career as an exile. In my opinion, if you can't reach endgame content, there's no point in building for the endgame content. That's just my personal philosophy. This has been an example of how I like to build characters. This is one of the many things I do when I am constructing a character's passive tree. I do this long before I actually play the character. That way I can obviously know where I'm spending my points. I like to plan things out. I like to plan things out at a massive amount of detail, so that I can know as much as possible about how effective a character will be before I play them. This has been Evil Squeegee talking about point efficiency Path of Exile. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.